Welcome, welcome. It's Wednesday, January 24th. Henry here, thanking you for joining us, chat. It's Wisecrack Live with Michael Burns. He'll be with us in just a moment. We're setting up getting some new setup stuff going technology-wise, so it's a bit bumpy right now, but we'll be right back. Don't forget to like the stream while you're here. Gleam the beam. We are all on its path. I see we just hit 100 concurrents and we only have 30 likes. Please, lick the stem. Bike the stream. Has everyone also looked over the Oscar ballot yet? We'll talk a bit more about that later, but I'm curious to hear from the chat how people are feeling about that. Thank you, Uncivilized Games. Punk rock reverend, the priest of a Serbian film. Yeah, the Oscar ballot will be linked in a little. Welcome, Beatmaster and Penny and Dead Card and Empress Gabrielle. There's so much fun to be had today. Thanks for joining us. Very active chat today. Thank y'all so much. What up, Alex? Beatmaster, you know the dome has stipulations. Duke of Disaster just straight up admitting to stealing company time. What a champion. What up, Maeve? What up, Offset Wasted? Greg Johnson, we would love to give some raw dome as well. Ryan Burns, do you think everybody gets a Pope Mobile with their Pope, or do they have to share them amongst their popes? Hello, Eddie. Good to see you.
Hey, what's up, everyone? What's up to all the sad dads? What's up to all the bad Mads Mikkelsens? What's up to all the other Danish thespians, the angry lesbians, the really happy, joyful, friendly people who work at Friendly's chains all around the southeastern United States? Hello to everyone who's ever had a DQ blizzard on a cold day and everyone who's had a hot cocoa on a hot day. What's up to all my presidential candidates, my gubernatorial hopefuls, and everyone in between? Shout out to my New Hampshire primaries, to my Princess Di diaries, to my Princess diaries, to the diary I found under my sister's bed when I was a kid, and I could have used it to make fun of her, but I said, you know what, I'm gonna put this down, Michael. This isn't yours. And of course, what's up, members of the Holy Roman Catholic Church? It's Wisecrack Live. It's January 24th. We're back. We were off last week due to illness. I'm still getting back to 100%. So today we might not go all the way. We might not go all the way. We might just take it to second base. Maybe we'll slide into third, but I don't know if we're going to get to home plate today. So happiness is the management of expectations. So I want those to be clear. So what's up to everyone in the chat? Good to see you all. Missed you. I do. I miss you guys. Express Gabrielle says, bless the maker and his water, bless the coming and going of him. May his passage cleanse the world and keep the world for his people. Let's go. Let's be spiritual today. Hope everyone's doing well. Let's make sure we don't have too many people watch the stream today. Like the stream, of course, but let's not go too crazy because here's what happened. I took the first week of the year off, and during that week, I went a little feral. I was in the woods of Northern California. So I was like, let's let the beard go. Let's not cut the hair. Let's become a man of the woods. Old Grease, I'm glad you missed my smell. We do pay a lot of money for that. If you don't have the smell activated on your YouTube stream, please turn on the smell feature. But I really let the hair go, let the beard go. And then I was going to get it together, but then I got sick. Whenever I'm sick, I feel like I'm an animal. I'm not a human. I'm a feral, disgusting animal, and I deserve to be, just covered in hair and filth. So again, that's why I'm looking like this. And I'll be really, really honest with you. This is too honest right here. This is the sort of honest that I shouldn't be. But we are filming a video today after this, but it is a video that's for a corporate sponsor who we appreciate. I genuinely appreciate them for giving us money to do this stuff. That's a real thing. I really feel that way. However, I'm not getting cleaned up for them. So the first video you see me where, it's trimmed, it's smooth, it's all together. You know that we're back. You know that's when 2024 has really started. That's when it's really started. So I'm glad to see everyone here. Glad to see you back. Thanks for checking out the videos. People seem to have watched the video that came out Friday on DEI. And I'm not gonna. This isn't necessarily like a mea culpa segment, but sometimes when a video comes out, I watch it and I see the response and I think like, oh yeah, we could have done X, Y, Z. And this is one of those ones where like, I think that maybe, and I'm curious what people in the chat think. All right, cool. So what I was saying before, we've taken out our digital enemies. Is I do feel like in the DEI video, we maybe could have gotten a way in which, like, obviously in the video we talk about how this attack on DEI and this idea, like my friend Elon Musk said the other day, that DEI is anti-Semitic, and now people are saying DEI is why like planes don't work. And Charlie Kirk said the stuff that guy says when he knows that there's a camera there. He said that if he gets on a plane and there's a black pilot, he's going to be worried that they got hired because of DEI and they're not like a good pilot or something like that. Oh boy. But we talked about that side of things. I do think, it's important to note that DEI culture in terms of big corporations using it to kind of like woke wash their shit is also important, and that is also bad. So hopefully no one watched that video and thought that what we were saying was, people that are using DEI as this code word for like liberal brainwashing and diversity ruining our society. Like, hopefully they also know that we're not saying that we think all of the like forced diversity training stuff is without issue, just got to say that. Let's see. I did see a comment. Let me scroll back. Username taken 4735 says, didn't the early Christians live in communes? Yeah. So we're going to talk about the Pope and communism today. We were going to talk about this last week. But I was out due to chemical warfare. It's clear that one of my enemies did attack me with a viral infection. I don't know who did it. I'll find out who it is, and I'll take care of him. But I want to talk about that because I'm very interested, and a thing I've always been interested in, a thing that sometimes at least you all seem interested in videos and we chat here, is the relationship between religion and politics and the culture around religion, the culture around politics. And I think especially, American politics and American society recently has become more dependent on certain readings and misreadings of the religious tradition. So I want to talk about that. I mean, one fun thing about this Pope, no matter what you think about the Pope's various natures, Catholicism in general, is it's funny that American Catholics or American conservative Catholics hate this Pope. And they are like, he is not our Pope. We do not want this Pope, So it's kind of like an enemy of my enemy is my friend's type thing, or enemy of my enemy is my friend. But there we go. Wait, Henry, can I ask a personal question?
Sure.
I don't know if you talked about this before. Did you grow up religious at all?
Very apathetically Catholic, and I don't really practice anything. I do like religion. Yeah. I've taken some religious studies courses and some other humanities stuff and some cross-cultural mythology. I'm actually really interested in this stuff, but as far as like subscribing to any kind of actual practice religion, I don't really have anything like that.
Yeah, I think I knew or remember that you had grown up, nominally Catholic or something. So I was just curious, and I know we have some friends that hang out with us that were Catholic at one point. Jay Thompson 1327 said, "Can we get anime philosophy again?" we're going to do an anime thing on our TikTok kind of soon. And then once we start the film and TV focused YouTube feed, I think there's going to be more room for stuff like that. So J Thompson 1327, that is my answer to that question. So we'll talk about the Pope stuff. So don't worry. It's coming. If you're on the Patreon, and especially if you're on the Patreon Wisecrack University level, I just posted a new video last night for our philosophy office hours video series where I just riffed a little bit on some questions that people asked me. Just a reminder that starting this year, we're going to have a new piece of Patreon content for you every Tuesday. 3 out of the 4 weeks, they are pieces of content available, I'm pretty sure, at like any level, no matter what you pay. The philosophy office hours video is a thing that you got to be at the Wisecrack University level, which I think is $10 a month. If you really feel like you want that video and you're missing out, though, just hit me up and I'm gonna try to send it to you. But so that's there. Check it out if you want. Also check out our video this Friday in 2 days that's coming out. If you're a patron, you'll get it tomorrow on plagiarism. And it's sort of a spiritual cousin of the DEI video because it's another video about how a certain sect of people in American, political and cultural life have designated a seemingly or previously nondescript thing as a huge political boogeyman and are using it to wreak havoc. So check that out. It's a weird one, and it really shouts to our buddy Helen because I wrote that video and I wrote it in this very like first person way where I was like, oh, I used to be a university professor. This is how I thought about plagiarism, blah, 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 blah. But then your boy got attacked by a virus from God, and Helen had to film that video and had to modify it a little bit, but it's still going to be great. So that comes out Friday. Check that out. Before we really, 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 really get into it, let's look at some comments. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I had them, and then they went away. Okay, cool. Okay. I assume is the first one the "Oh man, I grew up watching." Okay, cool. Oh, here we go. The worst cringe-inducing. Okay, cool. Okay, and this is from the corporate speak video. Awesome. Okay, so this is from Demonico. It says the worst cringe-inducing corporate speak from last year's layoff season was trim the fat in the company. If you guys didn't see it, we did a video on corporate speak. I encourage you to check it out. It's really good. It's really good. I really like that video. This person says it's fucking sickening when the fat they're referring to is people working in the company and not the fat and $1 million salaries of executives who sit in meetings all day. What do they do, guys? Like, what do the executives do? We're supposed to think that what they do is important. And sometimes I want to take them at their word. Like it is, it does take work to strategize a corporation from a high level. It does take vision to see what should happen, how it should happen. Sure. But what do they really do? But yes, I think this is true. A lot of the language around layoffs, firings, redundancies are always pretty odious. In particular when, let's think. Firings, layoffs recently. The LA Times, pretty big newspaper, the paper of record in the town in which I live, laid off 28% of their writing staff yesterday, including shutting down their Washington, D.C. office on an election year. Tons of really great writers got laid off. The website Pitchfork has been more or less gutted, folded into GQ under Condé Nast leadership. Anna Wintour, notable Satan lady, kept her fashion sunglasses on at the meeting where she told everyone they were fired. Wayfair, the company whose CEO told employees before the holidays to work harder if they cared about their jobs, they just laid off 18% of their workforce. People are getting fired. Riot Games laid off a huge chunk of their staff. Although I'll say this, Riot Games put out a statement as well for their employees where they're offering everyone like 6-month severance. They're trying to do right by people, which is the rare exception. So it's great to see that a gaming company is dealing with things in a more human way. Of course, this is all while in like economic news in the mainstream media, you hear about how the economy is just like ripping good again. So who knows? But great comment. The next one I have, Henry, is this right? Is it this blurring? This is from Robert Bestie. It says, this blurring of the boundaries between corporate, personal, and familial spaces is far more dangerous than even mentioned. It directly led to the idea that corporations are people and that money is speech. Thanks, Citizens United. For those of you who don't know, there's a Supreme Court point in America which basically said that corporations are individuals and that they are allowed to donate money directly to various political causes and groups. I think it also means that corporations can do really bad stuff without worrying about going to jail. The comment goes on to say corporations have successfully convinced society and the government that they have the same importance level. I assume they're meant to say here the same importance levels as actual humans and families. This has led to the explosion of lobbying and essentially legal bribery as the norm for our government process. Yeah, it's not good, guys. It's not good. You know, I've been. Go ahead. Oh no, sorry, I wasn't looking at the chat. I'm gonna go check it out. Sorry, friends. I was full screen looking at comments. Whoa, Empress Gabrielle, John Wicken, a great. I don't know what that means, but we came for the Pope. Empress Gabrielle, we're talking about him. I promise. Thank you so much. We're gonna get to the Pope. Fun story, friends. And a dog from when I was a cat says grew up in a very religious community and friggin' sucked. One of our pastors said philosophy is the devil. Hail Satan, I guess. Wow. Which is weird too, because the Catholics do love philosophy. I'll give them that. But we're getting into it. We're looking at these comments. We're talking about the Pope. Fun story, guys. I've been to Mass at, is it St. Peter's Cathedral? I went to Mass once with the Pope. Not this Pope, though. One of the like not good popes. I'll say it. I think this Pope's not bad for a Pope. I'm going to go to the next comment. The most shocking, is that right? All right. The most shocking was finding out that minimum wage laws were enacted to circumvent newly freed slaves from being willing to work for less money. Wow. There's a lot of things that are bad in America. If you look into how these things started, or not bad, but there's a lot of things that started I'm going to stop. I'm going to half stop. Go ahead.
I think you're trying to take a jab at like the reason we have a lot of protections in place now is because bad things used to happen.
Yeah, a version of that.
Yeah.
A version of that is what I'm getting at. But that's horrible. Okay, next one says this is from Dead Card 13. Never heard of him. Don't know who that is. No idea. Kidding. One of my former employers had the whole factory do mandatory diversity training. So this is from the DEI video. One of the highlights was a segment about wage discrimination, particularly against employees who were more advanced in age. This rung hollow 2 weeks later when everyone who had 25 years of the company got pushed into retirement and the newly open positions were all filled by high school student interns. Yeah, they love to do that. Forced retirement is such a nice way to like push people onto the ice float and act like that's not what you're doing. Horrible stuff. This one says, I just love it when my local government leaders make it into Wisecrack. I haven't checked this out from Tara B. Twilight, so I'm not sure who it is.
I think it's in reference to Greg Abbott.
Oh, yeah, we love Greg Abbott. That's my guy. Greg Abbott is not one of my dads, but he's one of my dad's brothers. So he is my uncle. As you would imagine, having 14 dads, and then all of those dads have at least 5 brothers. So you do the math. I have a lot of uncles. One of them is Greg Abbott, and I'm glad that I got to put Uncle Greg in a video. Okay, so this is someone that says, can we have Burns? And this is from our Case of the Mondays streams, brought to you by our friends over at Butterfinger, in which Lux is trying to convince me to get into gaming. I don't know why there's laughter. Can we have Burns play some actual games? If he's in a game already, he probably doesn't know what he likes or is looking for. Give him homework. I think that's fair. But, I haven't been feeling so well, so I'll get to it. And then Amaloyo, too, said, oh, man, I grew up watching Northern Exposure and was on the... Yeah, this is just a quick plug before we get into the main event today, guys. Being in bed sick, I needed something to watch, so I started watching Northern Exposure, a series I loved back in the day, that has been really hard to find. Like, Northern Exposure has never been on streaming before, and it's on Amazon Prime now. Shouts to Jeff Bezos. I love you, Jeff. I would rub oil onto your bald head. I'm allowed to say that. You guys couldn't, but Northern Exposure is on Amazon Prime. It is a great show. It's weird. It's philosophical. At times it's very like magically realist. There's some stuff in it that feels a little dated or whatnot, but for a show that came out in 1990, it definitely does in general, it falls on like the right side of history. So yeah, so check out that show if you're not already, Northern Exposure. And again, thanks for tuning in. If you're here, this is Wisecrack Live. This is our streaming to you every week. I'm Michael Burns. I'm here with producer Henry. I am slowly coming back from severe illness. Now I'm just kind of getting through the last dregs of it. So if I still seem like I'm not on my A game, it's because I would say I'm on my C+ game or something, but next week we should be all the way back. Knock on wood. Let's hope. But in the meantime, if you want to hear me and Lux talk about video games, you can check out the Case of the Monday streams. And just a note as well, those Monday streams right now, this month in January, they're sponsored by our friends over at Butterfinger. But starting in February, that stream is not sponsored by anyone. We'd love a sponsor. If you want to sponsor, we'll take anything. But if hypothetically any of you have felt like, this isn't really the vibe, this isn't really what I'm looking for right now, it's going to be different starting in February. It's going to be more of a hang time to catch up, talk about funny things we saw online, things we're watching, more of like a quick hang sesh to get the week going. So I would just say, if you've been a little bit on that thus far, give it a chance in February. For those of you who have tuned in the meantime, there you go. Beatmaster said, did you worry about Butterfinger being in chat on Monday? Yes, Beatmaster. Did not like that until I remembered that the people that work for companies that have jobs like that are like weird 23-year-olds. You know what I mean? So it's not like Mr. Butterfinger himself was, it was some 23-year-old who just like doesn't give a fuck. And they were just like, someone for their job was like, hey, today we need you to go on this like stream and whatever. And they were just like, fuck, I don't care. Just, hanging out. So why not? Okay, so let's talk about the Pope. Okay. I guess we'll start. Let's look at the Marxist Pope article.
Yeah, I have the Vatican News article at the ready.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, let's do some background here. I just clicked something and something weird happened. The story of my life. I clicked something and something weird happened. Did anyone do that thing where I don't know if some of you know this, but in like the oh my god, my computer's going crazy. But back in the day, if you went to the website, oh, what happened? Oh yeah. Guys, I think Wisecrack, or not Wisecrack really. I think our parent company needs to buy me a new laptop because I just use my personal laptop for like everything, and it's 5 years old and it's not doing well. But I don't know if anyone remembers this, and I don't know why this came into my mind, but I'm just going to commit, because in life, when something comes in your mind, commit to it, follow it, go with it. But a thing we used to do in computer lab in 7th and 8th grade is we would convince people to go to the website whitehouse.com Do you remember this, Henry? Do you know where I'm going with this?
Keep going. It was
Okay,
not
so
.gov, right?
whitehouse.gov. Yeah, whitehouse.gov is the White House website. Whitehouse.com in the late 90s, early 2000s was a pornography website. And it was a pornography website that like came up with like video started and like little like audio reel player type stuff, whatever it was back in the day, like flash imagery. And it was like, welcome to whitehouse.com. And like, I remember we did this thing once where this one dude, and we were like friends with him. So this wasn't like bullying, it was like messing with a friend. And this was like I was in like the nerdy kid class. So just as you visualize this, don't visualize this as like me and the football kids picking on someone else. Like we're already in an intra nerd scenario here in a computer lab. Okay. I wasn't on the field doing sports. I was in the computer class. Ugh. But we went to one of the kids' computers and we cranked up the speakers on it. And then I forget how we did it, but we were like, oh, hey, Mr. So-and-so said to go to whitehouse.com. And he went, and then all the audio started going. It was like porno sound, and everyone started freaking out. He didn't know what to do. It was a real fun prank to do back in the day. If someone in the chat right now wants to go to whitehouse.com and see what is there now,
Please report back.
Yeah, what's up, Blasphemous? What's up? Yeah, Callie Zabrenko knows. What's up, Carl Hungus? What's up, Clownicus? What's up, Penny? Just saying hi to everyone. What's up, Casey? What's up, Beatmaster? I'm glad to see y'all here. So, it became news a week or two ago that the Pope said some positive things about communism, socialism, Marxism, things of that nature. And some people got very mad about this. And there's an interesting thing, right? Because there's a certain contingent of individual. And one of these individuals would be like Jordan Peterson, right? So what are like two things that are really important for Jordan Peterson? Well, on the one hand, it's really important that we fight postmodern Marxism and socialism and all those things. Everything bad is because of those things. And of course, things like DEI are a part of like the socialist neo-Marxist agenda to turn your children into trans-commie super soldiers. On the other hand,
awesome.
Those same people, Peterson types, what do they want to combat that with? A certain type of traditional Christianity. And I know for Peterson, it's more like the mythology than the theology that matters. But, for people like that, for people like Charlie Kirk, for a lot of people on that side of the debate, religion is really important and traditional religion is really important. And for a lot of them, there's like even a fetishization of Roman Catholicism, right? Because what could be further away from modern, queer commie super soldier leftist culture than, Holy Communion Catholic Church, incense and pedophilia culture. And the reason the story is so funny is because it is the person who is literally in charge of the Roman Catholic Church, showing a sense of at least practical solidarity with people from this side of things. Now, someone already pointed out in the chat that early Christians lived in communes, and I'm going to put on my my Christian scholar hat right now. Yeah, Reclaim Dasein says don't tell them. In a cage fight, I'm going to say this, guys. You know that I try to fight against my toxic masculinity. I'm an old millennial. I'm trying to be better, but the one bit of toxic masculinity I still have is I really want to fight bad dudes, and I would love to do a cage match with Peterson, and I'm confident that I would break him like a goddamn fucking graham cracker over my knee. That was toxic though. That wasn't good. But to get back to the Bible, in the book of Acts in the Bible, it's the New Testament. It's a book that talks about the early Christian communities, right? And it talks about like they lived together, they shared all of the things, and they sold stuff, yada yada yada. The point being that when we think about a word like communism in the way that certain people want us to think about what that word means, that they want us to think that communism is like death camps, right? Like a Peterson type. They want us to think communism is death camps. People on the right, center in America, they want us to think that. But really, like, what is the root of the word? What does communism mean? It's like a living together communally. So there's already a sense in which there's a type of communism in its most basic sense, like communal living, sharing of resources, living collectively, in the New Testament of the Bible, the book that is the primary book for the Catholic Church. Empress Gabrielle, thank you so much. You are as well. I mean, what other stream will you go from my toxic fantasies of Fight Club to discussions of the roots of communism in the Book of Acts and the New Testament of the Holy Bible? But and there's sort of themes throughout. Oh no, whitehouse.com is a right-wing propaganda site now. Guys, things used to be better. Things used to be better than they are now in many ways. Yeah, Stephen M says gulags, mass graves, breadlines. That's what they want us to think of when we think about communism. But there's a lot of stuff. And if we're going to think about the contemporary moment, and someone on questions for the Patreon video pointed this out, and I think it's a really good point, that sometimes we get a little too obsessed with boiling everything down to the dichotomy between capitalism and communism, and that's a totally correct point. Those are two ideologies of many. They both start with the letter C. But the current debate, or a lot of the current culture war, in many ways, it is one of a version of capitalism and Christianity versus an idea of communism, leftism, atheism, whatever. And it's always struck me as interesting because when you look at both like the Bible itself, when you look at various theological traditions, I've seen people in the chat and people like Latin American liberation theology, there's not a lot in the Christian tradition that leads you to like nationalism, rampant economic exploitation, neoliberalism, white supremacy, whatever. Pedro said, you forgot what happened in Colombia, Romania, Russia. But see, here's the thing. Like, we can do this game right now where it's like, I said the word communism, and then you list any place where things have like gone bad because of regimes that identified themselves with communism. And then I could play the game where I'm like, let me tell you about some bad things that have happened because of fucking neoliberalism, my guy. And we could just do that game all day, but what are we really accomplishing there, right? We're not actually talking about ideas. We're basically saying, like, let's not talk about concepts. Let's talk about this team said they were about that concept and they did this, so that means the concept's bad. And I just don't know if that's. I think we could do better, and I'm not even trying to be rude. I really appreciate the comment, and I want us to be, open here, Pedro. I'm glad we're talking about this sort of stuff, but I just don't know if that's. Yeah, Dan Petch said, let's play Count the Bodies. I don't like the Count the Bodies game. Either way, I think that's not like a good way to explore these ideas. But let's just get into this article, and maybe this will ground my brain a little bit. So this is from Vatican News. But don't go to vaticannews.com. This is vaticannews.va. Vaticannews.com is something else. So this article is from Salvatore Seronizo. I think I'm a quarter or something Italian, so I can do that. Okay. Says people who are poor, unemployed, homeless, immigrants, or exploited, as well as those killed by past dictatorships and turned into rubbish by the throwaway culture of the present. The level of a society's civilization is measured by the way they are treated, the Pope said. That's a bar, right? So right off the bat, the Pope is saying the way we can measure civilization, the way we can measure the humanity of a civilization is by how the poor, the unemployed, the homeless, the immigrant, or the exploited are treated. And that's biblical. It's there. That's like in that stuff is like in the Bible. And he goes on and says Pope Francis reiterated the centrality of the vulnerable, as well as the urgency of countering the triple scourge of corruption, abuse of power, and lawlessness, both in politics and in society, in his address on Wednesday with representatives of the DIA-LOP Transversal Dialogue Project. This is a dialogue project between socialist, Marxist, communist, and Christians aimed at formulating a common social ethic that can be proposed as a new narrative for Europe in search of for a Europe in search of its identity, with an integral ecology between the social doctrine of the church and Marxist social critique at its core. That's really interesting. I think that's really interesting that like the cool. Let's see. Frosty Chicken says the Pope has immense power. If he actually believed in any leftist ideology on it instead of just paying lip service. True, but I guess like I feel like the power of like the Pope or of religious institutions in general is really ideological, meaning they can like say stuff and have an influence that way. But it's not like the Pope has an army. I mean, there's those. What is it? Is it like the Swiss Guards or something like that? But there you go. Let's see. Yeah, Rhodey. Someone says as a philosopher, some bigotry stuff Christianity, but it's actually anti-Christian. Yeah, I think that's true. Let's see. Just looking into the chat. Let's see. Frosty Chicken says, "How can we act victor? The Pope paid lip service to the leftist ideology with the callous intention of pandering to leftist theists who see the contradictions between church and leftism." I don't know. I guess what I kind of see Frosty Chicken, and maybe I'm being naive and I'm Pope pilled. I'm sorry if I'm Pope pilled. Is that like there's like two ways to be, right? Well, there's at least two ways to be. One way to be would be to say that I am Catholic or I am Christian. And because I'm Catholic or Christian, these are my values. And I'm only with people that are also Catholic. I'm only with people that are also Christian or whatever. And there's another side where I'm like, I am, Marxist commie super soldier who loves diversity and plagiarizes all the time. And I only mess with people who are just like me. I have no desire to work with people from outside that. And it seems like what the Pope is trying to do here, at least in this, we'll keep reading it, is start from a position of what are shared values we can rally around. And I do think like we love to be in our corner on our team more than we do sometimes like to like be like, oh, I share 75% with those people. So it seems like what's happening in this dialogue is that at least in a European context, socialist, Marxist group, communist groups, and Christian groups are kind of saying like, hey, we share all these ideas in a common ethic. And, something that like we talk about here is that our politics, and this is like half a bit and half not a bit, is that the only politics we espouse as Wisecrack, as a multinational billion-dollar corporate entity, is that we think we should have empathy for people and that everyone deserves to have a good life, right?
Yeah.
And in a sense, I think that like you could say, okay, amongst the socialists, the communists, and the Christians, there are similarities along those lines in terms of, a Christian might say, like the Pope does, that we should have a solidarity and an empathy with the poor, the widow, the wanderer, the migrant, the alien, whatever. And then a socialist might say, oh yeah, we also think that. The Christian might say, people should share their goods and resources for the betterment of their community. And maybe a socialist might say like, oh yeah, we think that too. That rips. The Christian might say that like, money is a false god. What really matters is faith, hope, and love. And the socialists might be like, not all the way, but I get what you're saying there. So it kind of seems like that's what's happening there. I find it kind of interesting. Let's see. Let's go. I'm going to skip out to this part that says freedom, equality, dignity, and fraternity. I'm going to look at the chat real quick. Blessings to everyone. Shout out to who in the chat is anyone in the chat confirmed Catholic? Shout it out. Let's shout it out. Who here has had a first communion? Let's bond over that today. Let's see. Carl Hungus is crack pilled. Catching up with the chat. Yeah. Okay, Wes is confirmed. Zoe's raised. Human Falafel is an Argentinian. Human Falafel, what's up in Argentina? I don't know a ton. It seems like this new president's a lot. Seems like he's a lot. Carl Hungus says, can communist materialism be consistent with Catholic dualism? I am Catholic. I'm confirmed, but it didn't stick. Confirmed and raised. See, we have a lot of various forms of Catholic, lapsed and otherwise. That's fun. Sorry, I haven't talked this much in a week, so I find that my voice is wearing out. Frosty Chicken says, I agree with the idea of meeting people in the middle to pull them left. Religion is a cancer which takes advantage of people's natural benevolence and corrupts it. And I'm curious if everyone thinks about this too. Like, Frosty Chicken brings that point up. It's so hard, right? Because in one sense, I get a hatred for religion. What's up, Leanne P? Let's go. But I understand. I guess okay, let's see if we can work this out. I'm someone who gets and empathizes with what who said that? I forget Frosty Chicken said about kind of like that hatred of religion. I get that because it's hard to sometimes not see the things that religion has done and be like, oh, fuck that. But then I wonder, is that doing the same thing as those who are like, oh, socialism and communism are a priori bad because of a gulag? You know what I mean? Because I guess it both, when you look at like the core text of socialism or communism, and I'm just going to text at this point, like the work of Marx, you don't see calls for gulags and death squads. It is not there in the text. In the same way, when you look at the core text of most religions, and I'll be honest, I'm mostly just familiar with the monotheisms, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. But I know especially in the New Testament, you don't see calls for like rampant hatred of people that have sexual identities that are different than yours. You don't have calls for like the prosperity gospel. You don't have calls for holy wars of religion. You don't have calls for like fucking sending bombs to abortion clinics. So I think that the question almost needs to be like, what is happening in between the text and the actions carried out by those who read that text? It's getting pedantic or didactic, one of those two. I'm sorry about that. Like the stream. But you get what I'm saying, Henry?
Yeah, I think too it speaks to a certain a misunderstanding of the purpose religion serves for people, in that you can point out all these technicalities as far as like text-based like hypocrisies go. That does not address the sort of emotional need for narrative I think religion serves for people, and I think beyond religion that slot gets filled by, it's the god-shaped hole. Like other ideas might fill that, but I think there's just kind of a core need for like a sense of emotional narrative or something to surrender to or pursue or have faith in beyond the just like superficially religious, that like if you don't go for like an explicit religion, you're going to fill it with a subconscious one of some sort.
Yeah. Ellie Esky says, bad analogy. There are definitely calls for a holy war. Are there in the New Testament though? Because Ellie Esky, you're totally like, in the Old Testament, there's some crazy stuff. Draylon says he's no communist, but Jesus was a proto-socialist. That seems fair. But yeah, something Henry said made me think of our old friend of the show, Marianne Williamson, who did not win the New Hampshire primary. Nor did Nikki Haley. Friend of the show, Nikki Haley. That was a good episode. What was your favorite part of our interview with Nikki Haley? I'll start with Henry, but in the chat, let us know, what was the best part about having Nikki Haley on the show, in your mind?
The best part was when we just totally got to ask about her original name, and it just made a very awkward silence, and we were just
That
hanging
was
there for
weird.
10 minutes. That was great. Like the chat was just slurring
I
it up.
regret that. Yeah.
Yeah. We lost complete control. It was a disaster. I'm glad we caught that live.
That was weird. I mean, I kind of liked when, she told us that she accidentally went to 10 Misfits shows in the late 80s because someone told her they were ironically posing as punk rock Satanist. But then that she got really into them, and that her favorite song is still When Eagles Dare by the Misfits. And then when we all sang together, um, I Ain't No Goddamn Son of a Bitch. That was fun. That was fun to sing that with her. They took the clip down, but there you go. So let's see. But to get back, that was a digression. It started from the Marianne Williamson thing. The reason I was thinking about Marianne Williamson is because, she made this point that in the 60s and 70s that there wasn't as much of a split between like the political and the spiritual, which I think is something we do more and more now. And I also, someone pointed out before in the chat, I forget who said it, maybe it was Beatmaster, pointed out that idea as well, that sometimes we might reject the idea of religion because we see it as like an opiate, right? Because of the Marx line. Religion is the opiate of the masses, but
Why do
it's
people
important.
take opiates?
Yeah, exactly. What Henry said, guys. When Marx says religion is the opiate of the masses, he's like, it's the cry of the oppressed world, the sigh of yeah. His whole point was that people turn to religion because the world isn't giving them anything, because their factory jobs suck, because their lives are miserable. So they turn to religion as like, this is something. The same way when we look at the opiate crisis now in America, at least, is there an opiate crisis like other places? That's just like a thing with us. But the root of the opiate crisis isn't just like the Sackler family is bad and we shouldn't produce these things. That's a part of it. It's fully a part of it. But one of the root of the opiate crisis, or one of the roots, is that people are miserable and their lives suck. So they turn to a thing. So, I think we just have to remember that critique of religion is a critique of society, and religion is just kind of the middleman there. Guys, I'm going to be honest. And Urinator, I saw you ask this. We did not interview Nikki Haley. That was a bit. She did not come on the stream. Maybe now that things are going poorly, she would come on here. So let's go back to this article from Vatican.va. There's a section that says freedom, equality, dignity, fraternity. It's the imagination and fact that intelligence, intuition, experience, and historical memory meet to create, venture, and risk, the Pope stressed. The Pope uses language that's a lot more interesting than a lot of American evangelical Christian leaders. He recalled how, over the centuries, it has been the great dreams of freedom and equality, of dignity and fraternity, a reflection of God's dream, that have produced progress and advances. In this sense, the Pope indicated 3 attitudes for dialogue to carry out its commitment: the courage to break the mold, attention to the weak, and promotion of a culture based on the rule of law. I mean, I want to focus, I think something that's interesting about this is like attention to the weak and the pride. So there's a thing that you get sometimes, actually, if we're not familiar with liberation theology, Mike Rose, we are glad you are off opiates and we hope that you stay off them. God bless you, dog. And anyone who's struggling with that, strength. A dog formerly known as the cat says, in my opinion, religion is for people too afraid to die. Fear has been turned into a vehicle for bad faith actors to profit up and fall profit. For sure. Religion's about that. I mean, I think that what's the guy? Is it Ernest Becker's book? The Denial of Death is so good on this. Like Ernest Becker, I think he's an anthropologist, wrote this book that's basically about how like every aspect of human culture or all these sorts of things are just us reckoning with the fact that we're afraid to die. Freud, when he writes about religion, uses similar language. Death is scary.
I do think there are instances where people's faith has driven them to speed up the death drive in one way or another, or
Yeah.
made them care less about their mortality, though.
Yeah. And Frosty Chicken, what you're saying is totally. I appreciate the dialogue. But I guess, yeah. So we're talking about the attention of the weak, the preferential option for the poor, a thing you get in liberation theology. Liberation theology is a position you get largely in Latin America. Shout to all our Latin American friends. And the TLDR of this is a lot of priests and Catholic academics in like the 60s, 70s were going to Europe to study at universities over there. I think largely in like Leuven, in Belgium. Is that where that is? I forget. And in Europe, they were learning about, Marxist philosophy. They were reading Hegel and Kierkegaard and lots of cool folks. And they were coming back and seeing how a lot of these vaguely Marxist ideas sort of melded with a lot of the principles that they saw important in Catholicism. And then liberation theology was the idea that the point of Christianity is the liberation of the poor. And that what the church should be doing is organizing people, fighting for the weak, fighting against repressive governments. And of course, this led a lot of those people to participate in fights against capitalism. And Reagan took care of it. We'll just say that. And we'll definitely say that some Reagan-backed death squads absolutely killed some priests. So that's a fun thing. We could talk about that later. Probably never, but it's a real thing that happened. But I think like here's what I'm getting at. And thank you for sticking with me today, guys. And this is I'm telling you this as well because I am recovering from illness. I'm not taking my ADHD medication because I have it in my head bad maybe to take stimulants when you're feeling kind of iffy. So this is unmedicated. This is the raw and uncut stuff.
This is
But
literal passion in the sense that you are suffering for it.
I would say that I am exemplifying the passion of the Christ today. I think that the next time you think to yourself, I want to watch Mel Gibson's epic, The Passion of the Christ, starring Jim Caviezel, a guy whose politics we fully endorse. Instead, go on YouTube and find the Wisecrack Live from Wednesday, January 24th, 2024. Because I am the passion of the Christ, is what I'm saying. But this idea of the attention of the weak is important. I'll tell you why. Because I think what the Pope is trying to say here and why there's maybe a confluence between the goals, aims, telos of the Pope and these, socialists and communists is that their perspective starts from the bottom. To quote Drake, I'm not going to do it. Never mind. But paying attention to the suffering in society and letting their sense of social ethic and politic be oriented towards that suffering and starting from there. Right? Now, a flip side of that would be if my social ethic or my way of looking at society is I look to the top, I look to those who are just crushing and I think, how can I both keep them crushing and then try to bring a few other people up with them, and I think that that's a pretty important distinction. I think if you were ever like having a fight with your parents, let's say you're a little bit, left leaning, you go home with you. That's like a way that early on I always put it to my folks when I'd come home from college with new ideas, that I just thought it was more important to care about, like, as the Bible would say, again, Passion of the Christ, the least of these over those who are already crushing. And yeah, I just think, I guess, let's see. If we go to the section that says criticism of finance and market mechanisms. And again, it's hard for me not to say this too, that like, and some of what's been said in the chat about the bad stuff the Catholic Church has done is totally real, and I do not want to dismiss that. But I can't be fully mad that the leader of the largest, Christian church on the planet is willing to call out finance markets. But it goes on to say the Pope then called for constant attention to be paid to the because the measure of a civilization is evident and how it treats those on the margins of society. I mean, this is why I struggle sometimes, even like driving to the studio today, I drive by a lot of like encampments where people just like live on the street in a major city in a rich country. And it's just like, what does this say about society? Who knows? And on the cuff remarks, the Pope recalled the history of the recent past. Let us not forget that the great dictatorships, think of Nazism, discarded the vulnerable and killed them. He urged world leaders to put in place policies that are truly at the service of humanity, saying society cannot allow itself to be dictated by finance and market mechanisms. I think this is really important, and it's something we talk about. Like, if we say, again, we should have empathy for people and we hope everyone has a good life, we're kind of saying, like, humanity should be the thing that is prioritized when we think about culture, society, politics, economics, and not, GDP,
Do not
not the success of the
categorize
market.
people as disposable.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this recently too, because like recently there's been kind of like debates amongst like smart finance boys on the internet and the Twitters where people are like, all these people complaining about how things are bad are idiots because technically, according to these charts and graphs, GDP is up and the economy is great. Which just leads you to think like, maybe that's not how we should evaluate the health of a society. Maybe GDP shouldn't be the dictator of these things. Let's see. Wes Walcott says, didn't the Pope say it was cool if same-sex couples bang or something? Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Pope recently was like, it's cool to have queer sex if that's your thing. Something like that, basically. Which is huge. He goes on to say solidarity, besides being a moral justice, which requires correcting distortions and purifying the intentions of systems, as well as radical changes of perspective and the sharing of challenges and resources among men and among peoples, the Pope says. And he defined social poets. Shout it out in the chat if you think of yourself as a social poet who dedicate themselves to this field because poetry is creativity. And here it is a question of putting creativity at the service of society so that it becomes more human and fraternal. He's kind of just like spitting here, but I do like it. And I like what's going on here because I feel, maybe I'm projecting, but I feel like it's being said is that like poets and creative people who tell stories about humanity are important because they can help us develop empathy, understanding, and compassion for people who are not just like us, and that compassion that is developed through our consumption of art and poetry will reflect our societal, economic, and ethical values. And the way that he like threads that needle, I do think is kind of cool. I think that like that's why Barbie is so important. So like the stream. But and let's see. I'm just scrolling down a little bit. Yeah. So all that to say is it's it was very much like a clickbaity news story that was all over Elon Musk's Twitter.com recently. But I think there's something interesting going on there. And I think the interesting thing is that at core, there is a shared overlap between how, I guess, a more progressive type of person sees our social, ethical, and financial responsibility and the way that the Pope does. And I think that this might do one of two things, right? I think reading something like this and thinking about it could have the effect on maybe the more militantly progressive among us of being like, hey, okay, I might not agree with everything they're saying, but maybe I do have some allies and a shared project of humanity, over at the cathedral. And I think, hopefully this is something that, like, because a lot of American Catholics have gotten like hella conservative. Believe it or not, Catholics at one point in time were Democratic voters primarily until the whole we're in charge of women's bodies thing came up. But I would hope, for example, I've all my relatives are Catholic, and I would hope if I was talking to like a right-leaning Catholic relative that I could bring this up and be like, hey, that's interesting, but like the Pope says X, Y, and Z. That sounds interesting. That sounds good. Why do you not agree with this? Like, why do you think, what is wrong about that? So I don't know. Find it interesting. Thank you for liking the stream. Thank you for being here. Yeah, just checking in with the chat. Roddy says, I think about religion as humanity's first teacher. No, I think about this too now, as hypothetically having a child. So maybe I do, maybe I don't. Oh, the book about religion and death, A Dog for a Woman is a Cat. The Denial of Death by, I'm pretty sure, Ernest Becker. I'm pretty sure. Going back in the chat, Rose ATL says, art can change the world, not money. I love art. I love art, guys. No, do you have any thoughts on this, Henry?
I think I've already kind of stated it with the religious need. I do think art does kind of synthesize the scientific and the spiritual or the emotional, just because of the way you can you really can frame and manipulate emotions and psychologies with media. And I do think movies aren't movies and consumption and stuff, like there's a certain limits to that as far as political activism goes, but I think there's still a valid ideology and purpose for them in social fabric that this is on to.
Yeah. Well, speaking of movies, we'll get into some other stuff. Again, just thanks for hanging out. Thanks for indulging that discussion. You all appreciate it.
Love movies and politics.
Love movies and politics. But just checking in. You're watching Wisecrack Live. Wisecrack's weekly stream here Wednesdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I don't know, other times in other places. I'm not saying time is America. We don't own time. But those are the times where it happens. I'm Michael Burns. I'm here with producer Henry. We're gonna jam for a little bit longer. We normally do this for about 2 hours. I'm currently on the mend from biomechanical weapons attack on my immune system, so we're kind of easing back into it. We're going to be live again Monday for the final Butterfinger series, the Butterfinger sponsored Case of the Mondays, where Wisecrack's own Michael Luxembourg and Wisecrack's own producer Henry are trying to convince me to get more into video games. It's been fun. We're eating Butterfingers. I got to wear a Butterfinger sweater. I put on a Butterfinger bucket hat, and my wife started laughing and looked at me and said, "You cannot wear that on camera." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." But check that out. Friday, we got a new video coming out. Check that out. You might notice we're doing one video a week now. We're trying to put some more effort into these things. Not that we weren't before, but basically what I'm saying is we were putting so much effort into doing 2 videos a week on a small team that it was burning us out and we were starting to slowly die. But because we only do 1 video a week now, it's a lot more important that people watch them, because the numbers dip too much, we're fucked. So do watch the videos, comment, share them, all that sort of stuff. As always, if you want to support the channel, you can be a member on YouTube. You could also join our Patreon. In the past, the biggest perks of the Patreon in the past have been like, you support us. That means a lot. We love you for it. You get videos early with no ads, some perks here and there. But we're really upping our game in 2024. It's the year of Patreon. So, check it out. We got some more stuff going there. To get back to movies and the way art changes lives and society. Dog for thank you for gifting a membership. We really appreciate that. We love membership gifting. We love it. If you give memberships, it makes you Lord of the Chat. Okay. So, thanks, old Grease. People are losing their minds over the Oscar. I don't know how much people care about that in this community. You know, I don't know how much those of you who are in the chat right now care about it, but you know, maybe can we pull up the Hillary Clinton tweet and have that on screen? Yeah. Oh, take your time. I'll give some context. The context is that um, the Oscar nominations were announced yesterday. Now, here's just a reminder of what the Oscars are more or less a workplace award ceremony. They are a much larger version of something like, you know, the Dundies, which are the Dunder Mifflin Awards that Michael Scott runs, in which a lot of very successful and very rich people vote on what work by other successful and rich people in their industries, you know, how they think they did. Critics aren't voting, you're not voting, I'm not voting, whatever. And they're fun. There's a risk of taking them too seriously. It's also important to remember the
Yeah.
Oscars started as a way to get a union to chill the fuck out. This is a true story. The unions in Hollywood in the early 20th century were losing their mind. They wanted recognition, and the Oscars were a way to give the workers little awards so they would calm down. It's a real story. And anyone who's at all serious about film, I think, knows that, you know, the Oscars often award very good movies.
I think
But they by no means are like the final word on artistic achievement.
yeah,
Go ahead, Henry.
I think every budding cinephile has a year where they realize like, oh, the Oscars are BS. And then from there on out, they either kind of reconcile with that and just kind of like, you can still watch the Oscars and accept it as like, okay, this is a mediated lens, as you earlier were describing. And it's kind of interesting in that sense. Also, just seeing what the general kind of like consensus is on like what's trying to be shown to people. I do think, like, for instance, I hadn't heard of Nyad this year until the Oscars popped up. I know everybody's getting mad over other stuff, but I do think there's still some sense of like, hey, this, if you dig into like what's being nominated, you can probably find something you didn't know you were gonna like.
Yeah, it's like fun. I like this time of year because it's fun. There's a show we all make fun of every year. I try to watch as many of the movies as I can, and it's fun to try to like watch some of the animated shorts that get nominated.
Yeah.
It's fun to try to track down all the international films.
Austin Film Society here in Austin, Texas, they program all the shorts, the animated
cool.
and the live action. You can go catch them in a theater. That's always very fun. And yeah, I feel also just because I work in like an industry with a lot of people who are in the media doing media, there's a certain Oscar hate that I think's kind of old hat by this point. Just like, I get that people don't like the Oscars, but I think everybody's kind of settled on it being upsetting, or like, upsetting is part of the tradition. There's always something that's left out. Like it's undeniable at this point.
Yeah, in a sense, it's like, it's embarrassing to care too much and it's boring to hate them too much. Landing in the middle is where we want to. And you know, I would say this year, not a bad year for movies in general. We talked about this before, you know. And here, let me just pull up. Sorry. Oh, yeah, I was gonna like real quick. You know, going through like nominees this year, right? Here, let me go to. Yeah. Okay. So I just want to look at this. Let's look at like the best pictures this year. And they do 10. They used to do 5, they do 10. You know, best pictures. American Fiction. A pretty fun movie that looks at writing, academia, race in America, the way in which white people can fetishize certain visions of African American culture. Fun movie. Glad it got made. Anatomy of a Fall. I've not seen this movie. French film. I'm watching it soon. By all accounts, a good movie, like a real movie that explores ideas and interesting and sort of a what's the word I'm looking for? Not vague. I'm just gonna say vague ways. Barbie, fun movie. Who didn't have fun seeing Barbie in the theaters?
One of my
The
favorite
whole
theater experiences this past year.
was
Everybody
great.
was laughing.
It was a fun movie to see in the theater with your friends. And we have The Holdovers. Great movie, guys. I loved The Holdovers. A
Yes.
movie that feels like it's from a different era, a quiet meditation on identity and loss and the holidays and sort of like, elite culture versus working culture. It's just a great movie. Killers of the Flower Moon. Are you kidding me, guys? Are you kidding me? Martin Scorsese in his 80s out here just cooking a unsettling tale about the way in which Americans exploited and then double exploited and then triple exploited Native people. A movie that ends with the filmmaker himself acknowledging the complexity and the irony of him even creating this work of art. And we got to see that. Wow. Maestro, that sucked. Let's keep it moving. Oppenheimer. Um, Fun movie. I mean, Oppenheimer again, seeing that in the theater, great time. Christopher Nolan was like, "Hey guys, I made Tenet. My bad. Let me make up for it."
No, Tenet's good.
Wild take. I
No,
respect
no,
it, but
Tenet
wild
is
take.
good. But yes, Oppenheimer is better. It is his most human movie. He's usually, accused of being cold and emotionless, which I think that's not 100% accurate, but Oppenheimer is him setting his tools towards his most human curiosities.
Yeah. Past Lives, really good movie. I've soured on it a little bit, but again, like an ambiguous tale about culture, life, love, brilliantly acted. Poor Things. Wow. Guys, Poor Things. Poor Things. That's a picture. And then finally, The Zone of Interest. I don't know if anyone's seen Zone of Interest. Have you seen Zone of Interest?
No, it's on my to watch list because that director really impressed me with the prior work.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It is phenomenal, but it's deeply unsettling. It's really intense. And for those who don't know, the Zone of Interest, based on a Martin Amis novel, is a movie about a family, the dad of which is like the CEO of Auschwitz. And they have a lovely family home, big garden and kids running around that literally shares a wall with Auschwitz. Um, it's really intense and one of those movies that it sounds cliche to say gets at the banality of evil in really extreme ways. All that to say is great year for movies. A lot of good movies. But people lost their fucking minds yesterday because Barbie didn't get enough awards. In particular, they're mad that Greta Gerwig was not nominated for Best Director. Only 5 people get nominated there. And that, and that Margot Robbie was not nominated for Best Actor. And, the Best Actress nominations were Annette Bening for Nyad, Lily Gladstone, Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan for Mastro, Emma Stone for Poor Things. I hope it's Lily Gladstone. If not that, Emma Stone. But there's only so many awards to go around. But people are acting like it is a big sin of cinema,
Yeah.
a big problem of the world that Barbie didn't get all the nominations. People are acting like, feminism has collapsed. People are acting like we live in a society and like misogyny, very, very. Let's not kid here. But it was insane yesterday on Twitter. People were saying wild things. And then this morning, we got a tweet from friend of the show, Hillary Rodham Clinton, in which Hillary Clinton gets on Twitter and says, Greta and Margot, while it can sting to win the box office, but not take home the gold, your millions of fans love you. You're both so much more than Kenough. Hashtag Hillary Barbie. What are we doing? What are we doing? What the fuck, guys? What an insane discourse.
You know
What an
what?
unhinged discourse.
Do you know what other popularly loved action figure movie that was heavily coded towards one gender was nominated for 8 Oscars, but did not get a nod for Best Picture or Best Director? The Dark Knight.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
I always feel icky getting into this because there's like such a discourse over like representation versus aesthetic versus quality versus like biases of the Academy. But like, I don't know. I think it's pretty cool that Barbie got $1 billion and so many noms, and then there's other things on the slate that we can look at.
Wait, we got to say something funnier. Sorry. In the chat, Mike Rose, who I've been taking seriously, Mike Rose, said it's funny how everyone's going woke, especially in their films. When you go woke, you go broke. My guy, Barbie made $1 bazillion.
Yeah, what? Like,
It made the
yeah,
most
it
money
made all
of the
the
year.
money.
What made more money, Barbie or fucking Lady Baller? Kidding me? Come on. That's not true, dude. The whole go woke, go broke thing, it's just like not true. It's just not true. It's just not true. Also, wokeness, not a real thing. We made a video about it. Check that out. But guys, here's the thing. Barbie, good movie, fun movie, great time in the theater. Made $1 billion, guys. Made all the money. And Margot Robbie produced the movie. So she made ass tons of money. Someone posted the meme from Mad Men where Don says to one of his workers when they're mad, he doesn't like love them. He says, that's what the money's for. Like, that's what the money's for. So yeah, extraneous is Barbie 14 worldwide top box office of all time. $1.446 billion. All that to say is, just because a movie is fun and makes a lot of money doesn't mean it has to get all the awards too. And it's very annoying to see this happening. And it's very stupid when there's fun things we could be talking about, movie-wise, you know? And instead, we see a lot of unserious people implying. And also, here's the thing too: Barbie is a really fun movie, but again, guys, it was produced by a toy company, by a company that makes toys. The toys that are probably made by children in factories. Do I know this for sure? No, but would I bet that the hands of impoverished children have made Barbie dolls? I would bet that has happened. Like, so let's just like calm down a little bit.
I'd be hard pressed to know who to remove from the current Best Actress running pool to put Roby there because she did better in Asteroid City than she did in Barbie as far as even recent performances go.
If we're going to talk about movies that got shut out that should have been nominated for something,
yes,
fucking
Asteroid City.
But you know, if we're going to talk about actresses left out, I mean, how about Greta Lee? How about Korean American Greta Lee, who put on an amazing performance in Past Lives? I'm just saying. That's someone that I would gladly, you know, sub in for someone. But no one seems to care about that. I mean, also too, it's just funny as well that like the same people that are obsessed with Barbie as representing a certain idea of their, I guess, like gender politics. Like, guys, watch Poor Things.
Yeah,
watch that movie.
Anatomy of a Fall's also female directed.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't count because she's French and not cool. And
also, too, like it's not American. It's
yeah. And again, too, like we're not dismissing the fact that the Academy historically been really shitty towards women directors. They just have. They objectively have. What we are saying is that the reaction to the Barbie thing is really silly. What's up, Paul? It's just really silly. And that's all we got to say. That's all I want to say about that for now. We can talk about some of this more later. Wow, someone else likes Tenet too. Gregoria, you and Henry should hang out.
You're the two
people.
Here.
You're the two people that like Tenet. The two people on the planet. Let's see. And yeah, and people are mad too that Ryan Gosling got nominated, but like he kind of was the movie. He did the singing numbers, you know. But yeah, but and again too, if we're gonna give Margot Robbie an award, let's build a time machine. Let's go back to last year, 2022 Oscars. How about Best Actress for Babylon? I'll say it till I die. Guys, watch Babylon if you haven't yet. Let's see. You know, a few other things, you know, while you know, our good boy Ron DeSantis has dropped out of the presidential race. So everyone pouring out for good boy Ron DeSantis. Something that maybe we'll get to next week. I just don't have the gas tank to do it today. There's an interview that the New York Times did with Andreas Malm, who's the guy that wrote How to Blow Up a Pipeline. I really recommend checking it out. The article is titled How This Climate Activist Justifies Political Violence. And you could like 12-foot ladder it if you don't have a New York Times subscription. Although I'm on an account right now where I'm not logged in and it's showing it to me. It's really good. And I think it gets at a lot of the contradictions and how we think about like politics and culture these days. And in particular, how we like navigate, you know, like how we think about violence, what violence is good, what violence is bad, all that sort of things. Juliet hated Babylon.
Oh,
Juliet,
no.
Juliet, let's watch it together. Let's watch it, and I'll just talk the whole time about why it's good. Because that's what everyone wants. A man who's just like, actually, this movie's good, which they make fun of very well. I'm the guy in...
You're Tobey Maguire in Babylon, just like making us look at his stuff.
Well, I'm that, and then I'm also, I guess, the character in Barbie who explains The Godfather to Issa Rae. Someone said Jon Stewart is coming back to The Daily Show. Is it real? Because The Daily Show just announced they weren't going to hire a new host.
Yeah, I heard that they were rotating. They were on hiatus and we're going to come back with like a rotating thing.
Yeah, they called me, but they said I had too much. It's okay, Juliet. The Daily Show called me and they said my overwhelming sexual energy would be distracting to viewers, so that I couldn't be on. So that was difficult. It was difficult. It was a difficult call, and they were like, as a sex symbol, you know, it really overrides everything else you do. I'm kidding, guys. I'm kidding. So let's wrap it up here for today. Thanks for hanging out, guys. We'll be back full steam next week. I need to get some food in my belly before we record a video that we got to do today. If you're a patron, look out tomorrow if you're a Patreon. If you are a patron, look out tomorrow for a video that's coming out on plagiarism, a video I wrote and that our friend Helen hosted. It's going to be great. If you're a non-patron, which is fine, I love you just as much, and so does God. That'll be on the YouTube channel on Friday. In general now, too, all our videos, with one exception, are dropping Fridays at 10 a.m. Pacific. So Friday mornings, have that be your routine. Friday or afternoon with Wisecrack. Please check it out, comment. It really helps us out. We got to make sure the numbers are good. Ingmar Bergman, what a person. Did you watch Bergman Island, Roz ATL? Very fun movie. Like the stream on your way out if you haven't already. Thank you, Empress Gabrielle. If you want to support the channel, you can be a member here on YouTube, have a green username. It's really fun. Or you can join our Patreon, you get extra content. There's a video up right now of me riffing for a while. I laid on the couch and recorded a video yesterday because why not? We'll see you next week. Give some love to producer Henry in the chat. And again, shout out to our friend Nikki Haley. Hopefully you'll come back on the show sometime soon. It was really good having her on and to talk to her again. And we'll work on getting Ron DeSantis on the stream as well. We'll see you next week right here on Wisecrack Live.
Thanks for joining us, y'all. See you next week.